This is the third video in this series, and so far we have really nailed our expectations. We will see if that is the case here in week 5. What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and before we get to the expectations for week 5, let's just revisit really quickly last week's expectations. And so we start with a Big 12 front runner will emerge. We saw that with Texas Tech, so that expectation. And I didn't want to give a prediction for that game, but I actually kind of thought it might be Texas Tech. I thought they would win that game, and I thought they would do it pretty easily. And I think we saw that in that game. Although it was a good game, it was a good game for a while. They did pull away late. So we saw that. I said an SEC team will get upset by a Group of 5 team. This one almost didn't happen. If Arkansas just doesn't fumble the football and they make a field goal, then this would not have happened. But it did happen, and Memphis beat the Razorbacks. All right, number 3 was Nebraska-Michigan will be the game of the week. You know, I don't know about this one in terms of the big games. And again, that was a big emphasis when I said that. I'd say Auburn-Oklahoma maybe was a better game. But this one was a good one. And, you know, in terms of just best game, not looking necessarily at the big games, that Arkansas-Memphis game was probably the best finish. That was a great game there. But, yeah, this was a good one, and I think it meant a lot. I think it meant that Michigan is a player in the Big Ten with this win. And Nebraska, I think it's going to be tough for them to be in that playoff conversation or in the Big Ten championship conversation, which I don't think many people really expected anyways. But that was a big opportunity for them. I said Miami and Oklahoma will roll at home. Miami did. Oklahoma won, but I would say they didn't really roll like I thought they would. That was actually a very competitive game. Again, technically, I would say, you know, they did win, so this was true, but it's not exactly what I meant when I said that. Again, by rolling, I thought it would be, and I think I said in the video, I thought both of these teams would win by double digits. Didn't quite see that with Oklahoma. We did see it with Miami. So again, I haven't been perfect, but for the most part, we've been pretty accurate with this. And then finally, Indiana will make a statement with win over Illinois. I think this one we got exactly right. And you talk about a statement. Boy, they blew out the Illini. So that expectation absolutely came true. I didn't expect them to win by that much, but I did think that they were going to go in there and win fairly easily, and they did. So now let's get to week 5 and my expectations for this week. And the very first one, I was struggling with what I wanted to say, how I wanted to word this, but you know, this is what I'm going to go with. Alabama or Oregon will get a massive road upset. So Alabama going to play at Georgia, Oregon going to play at Penn State. I'm not picking either one of these teams to win, but I think one of them will win. I know that makes absolutely no sense because I don't know which one it's going to be. So again, if I'm just picking games, I'm going to pick Georgia at home. I'm going to pick Penn State at home. But I really think that one of these teams will pull off the upset. We know about Alabama's track record against Georgia. I think they've got a real shot in this game. Everyone kind of wrote them off after that Florida State game. But now we see Florida State's actually pretty good. And Alabama is still, the talent is there. And I think this will be a very good game. Oregon, Penn State is a tricky one because Oregon has looked really good so far. In terms of just being impressive, you know, Oregon, maybe Florida State, those have been like the most impressive teams, just blowing teams out, but haven't necessarily played the best competition. Of course, Florida State did play Alabama, but Oregon hasn't really played anyone. Penn State really hasn't played anyone, haven't even played a Power 4 team. So I don't know how that game is going to go. It's a tricky one, but I think either Alabama or Oregon will get a big upset, and I'd love to know, you guys can let me know down in the comments, which game do you think will be the big upset? Will it be Alabama beating Georgia? Will it be Oregon beating Penn State? Or maybe you guys think that neither one of these is going to happen. Or does anyone think that both of these could happen? I do not. I do not think Alabama and Oregon both win, but I do think one of them win. All right, let's go to number 2. My number 2 expectation for week 5. 2 of these teams will get upset on the road. So out of these 5 teams, I believe 2 of them will lose. You've got Notre Dame going on the road to play Arkansas. That is definitely a potential upset there. You've got BYU going on the road to play Colorado. BYU, a team that we just don't know a whole lot about. Colorado has not looked great, but I think I talked about this on the upset alert video with Caden Salter back at quarterback. I think having him there, that's going to help. And I think Colorado could pull off the upset there. Tennessee has to play At Mississippi State, the Cowbells will be going. I think that is going to be a very tough one for Tennessee to get. Again, preseason, I actually picked that upset. Now, I don't know if I would pick it, but I think it's definitely possible. Ohio State has to go out west to play on the road at Washington. That's a tough place to play. That could be an upset. And then USC on the road at Illinois. That's one I think that's probably one of the 5. I kind of like Illinois to win that game. I think they bounce back. A lot of times when teams get beat like that, they will bounce back. And then you got the travel and the early kick and all that. There's a lot that really points towards an Illinois upset. So, again, I think that one is probably my number 1 pick. And then my number 2 pick is probably between Colorado and Mississippi State. I think BYU or Tennessee will lose. And then Ohio State, Notre Dame, maybe one of them go down. As maybe that could be the other game. But I do think 2 of these teams will get upset. Probably not 3. It could be 3, but I don't think it'll be 1. I think it'll be most likely 2 of these teams will get upset. So we'll see if that proves to be true. There are a lot of, again, I said this on the upset alert video, a lot of potential upsets for this weekend. Next, we go to number 3. A Big 12 home favorite will get upset. And it kind of seems like the theme here is upsets, but I think one of these teams is going to go down. Arizona State's just a slight favorite. They've got the Friday night game against TCU. That's going to be a great game. Really, that wouldn't be a big upset. But, again, Arizona State is favored. Kansas plays a good Cincinnati team. I think that's one that could go either way. Iowa State plays Arizona. You look at the Arizona and Iowa State games where they play Kansas State, and I would say Arizona probably a little bit more impressive. So yeah, that's one that I think could go either way. And then Kansas State playing UCF. UCF is undefeated. Like UCF and Arizona, how good are they really? I know they're undefeated, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one of them pulls off the upset. Maybe it's Cincinnati or maybe it's TCU. But I think one of these teams will go down. I think they will get upset at home, and it could potentially shake things up in the Big 12. Let's go now to number 4. Indiana and Texas A&M will take care of business. So I think Indiana playing on the road at Iowa. A lot of people think that could be a tricky game for them, even though they did just obliterate Illinois. I think Indiana's that good. I think they'll be ready for that environment, and I think Indiana will win that game by double digits. So this is kind of like the game I talked about the 2 games I talked about last week with Miami beating Florida and Oklahoma beating Auburn. It's kind of the same thing here. I think these teams win by double digits. It's a revenge game for Texas A&M against Auburn. I think they'll be highly motivated. I think Auburn maybe going to be still a little bit let down after that loss to Oklahoma. So I do think both of these teams will take care of business at home. And that does not mean they're going to blow the opponent out, but I think they will win by 2 possessions or so. Indiana, who knows? Maybe they have potential for a blowout, but I don't really see Texas A&M beating Auburn by 30 points or anything like that. But I do think both of these teams will win by double digits. All right, let's go to our number 5 expectation. LSU will find its offense against Ole Miss. I know LSU's offense has been struggling. They did kind of put it together last week against a bad team, but I think Ole Miss's defense is really. I know they did pretty good against Tulane, but before that they were really struggling. And I think with a young offensive line for LSU, they're gonna continue to get better and put the pieces together. And we know the talent that is there. I like LSU to beat Ole Miss, potentially by 2 scores. I think being on the road makes me hesitant to say that, but regardless, I think LSU will be able to score in this game. The only way I think Ole Miss pulls off the upset is if it just really turns into a shootout and they can score on LSU's defense, which has been tough to do for teams so far this season. But if they can get into that shootout, I think that does favor Ole Miss. LSU, though, I think will have enough offense here in this game, and I think they will. I think they'll score 28 or more. Let's go there. I think they score 28 or more. Finally starts to look like the LSU offense that we expected. And again, I think they'll win this game as well. So those are my 5 expectations for Week 5. Give me your expectations down in the comments below.